All right, so I was reading Titus chapter 3, and it struck me that Paul uses this interesting literary technique to put a point across to the readers. Let's take a look. And what he uses is what I'm just going to call the sandwich literary technique. It's not technically the name, but you'll get the idea. In verses 1 and 2, Paul's going to teach something important. And then in verses 9, 10, and 11, he's going to teach something else that's important. But right in the middle of these two passages, he's going to teach the most important thing. If you think of a sandwich, think of this as the meat of the sandwich. And the meat in this passage is the gospel. You can go ahead and read it for yourself. But Paul is basically saying this is the most important thing about you if you're going to live as a Christian in our world. So what is he saying in verses 1 and 2? He's talking about your political views. Don't be one of those obnoxious people that just never get along. You're totally anti-authoritarian and you're quarreling all the time. You see, that's how the culture was back in Titus's day on the island of Crete. And Paul is saying, as a Christian, you shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't just go along with the way your culture is and be sort of this obnoxious, opinionated person and anti-authoritarian when it comes to government. So that right there is the bottom piece of bread in the sandwich. And then verse 9 is the top piece of bread in the sandwich. And he says, don't be one of those theological junkies that just gets all into these specific little doctrinal debates and you just make your Christian life all about that. Paul says that's no good either. So in this section, he's talking about being a theological junkie. And then in the section above, he's talking about kind of being a political junkie. But the meat is what's in the middle. And in the middle is the gospel, the simple gospel that as followers of Jesus, we should be people who love others and we're defined more than anything by our pursuit of God. And we should live in this world to help people pursue God more than we should live in this world to promote a political agenda or a theological agenda. Now, I don't know if you've ever been one of those people, or maybe if you just know some of those people who are so into their political views or so into their theological distinctives that they're really not helpful as far as helping other people pursue God, because they make their Christian life all about those things. And Paul is saying this, where's the beef? The beef, the meat, the stuff in the middle, go back and read that in Titus chapter 3. That's the most important stuff. That's what should define you. When you think of your neighbor that doesn't know Jesus and you want to help them to know Jesus, I hope they don't think that knowing Jesus is all about your political perspective or your theological distinctives. I hope that they know that following Jesus is all about loving God and loving others, which is what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 22.